Daniel gripped the wheel as his truck rumbled over the cracked asphalt of the deserted road. The night pressed in around him, thick with the weight of something unseen. The headlights carved a narrow tunnel through the darkness, revealing twisted trees and rusting road signs that had long since lost their purpose. He wasn't supposed to be here. This stretch of abandoned industrial land had been forgotten for years. But something felt off. Then he heard it. A faint, almost imperceptible whimper. It was barely audible over the steady hum of his engine, yet it cut through the silence like a whisper in an empty house. His foot eased off the gas. For a long moment, he hesitated, scanning the darkness beyond the windshield. It could have been anything, the wind slipping through the wreckage of old buildings, the distant cry of some night-dwelling animal. But instinct told him otherwise. He pulled over. As soon as he stepped out, the cold night air pressed against him, thick with the scent of damp earth and rusted metal. The sound came again, soft, pained. He turned toward the dilapidated warehouse at the edge of the lot, its skeletal frame barely holding together under the weight of time. Something was there, watching, waiting. He moved cautiously, boots crunching over gravel. The whimper grew louder, leading him to the side of the warehouse where a faint glint of metal caught the moonlight. His breath hitched. A cage. Rust ate away at its bars, its once solid structure now brittle and corroded. But it wasn't the cage itself that stopped him. It was what lay inside. A dog, if it could still be called that. The creature was curled into itself, ribs pressing sharply against its thin, dirt-caked fur. Its breathing was shallow, body unmoving except for the faintest rise and fall of its chest. A pair of eyes, hollow yet startlingly alive, lifted to meet his. They held no fear, only resignation, as if it had already accepted whatever cruel fate had brought it here. Daniel knelt, gripping the bars. "Who did this to you?" he murmured, though the answer wouldn't come from the dog. He inspected the lock. Old, rusted shut. Someone had left it here, left him here, to waste away. The thought sent something hot crawling up his spine. A small bowl of water sat just outside the cage, untouched. The food dish was empty, but the remnants of fresh scraps clung to the edges. This dog hadn't been forgotten. Someone had been keeping it here, feeding it just enough to survive, but not enough to live. Daniel's fingers dug into the bars, a surge of urgency flooding through him. He had to get it out, now. Grabbing a tire iron from his truck, he wedged it between the rusted latch and pried. The metal groaned in protest before finally giving way with a sharp snap. The door creaked open. The dog didn't move. Daniel hesitated, then reached inside. His fingers brushed against frail fur, and the dog flinched. Not in fear, but in uncertainty, as if it had long forgotten what kindness felt like. Carefully, he scooped the animal into his arms, expecting it to resist, to struggle. But it didn't. It simply collapsed against him, too weak to fight. As he lifted the dog, his knee knocked against something hard beneath the cage. He glanced down. The dirt had been disturbed, revealing a shallow indentation. Something was buried here. Setting the dog down gently, he brushed the loose earth aside, fingers scraping against something cold. A metal box, covered in grime. He pulled it free. It was small, about the size of a shoebox, with a strange emblem carved into its lid, an intricate, almost ceremonial marking. Not the kind of thing someone would leave behind by accident. His pulse quickened. This wasn't just about a dog. He reached for the latch. Then, from somewhere in the distance, the crunch of gravel. A car rolling to a stop. Daniel froze, heart hammering. He wasn't alone. Daniel barely had time to shove the metal box under his jacket before the unmistakable sound of a car door opening cut through the night. He crouched low, pressing himself against the rusted cage, his pulse a rapid thrum in his ears. The dog beside him let out a weak whimper, as if sensing the shift in atmosphere. Boots crunched against gravel. Steady. Purposeful. Someone was coming. The dim glow of a flashlight swept across the ground, illuminating the skeletal remains of the warehouse. Daniel held his breath, watching as the beam drifted closer. Then, a voice. Low. Gruff. You sure it was here? Another voice responded, this one sharper. Yes. The tracker was still active an hour ago. It's got to be close. Daniel's grip tightened on the box beneath his jacket. Tracker? He didn't like the sound of that. The beam of light flickered over the cage, stopping for a fraction of a second before moving on. Daniel pressed himself further into the shadows, keeping his breathing shallow. The dog remained eerily still beside him, as if it, too, understood the danger. The footsteps continued past, heading toward the entrance of the warehouse. Daniel took the chance. With careful precision, he scooped the dog into his arms and moved, keeping low to the ground. His truck was only 30 feet away, but in the vast openness of the lot, 30 feet felt like miles. He forced himself to stay calm, measuring each step, resisting the urge to run. Behind him, the voices grew fainter, their conversation muffled by the pounding of his heart. Almost there. His fingers brushed against the truck's door handle. He pulled it open as quietly as he could and slid inside, placing the dog gently on the passenger seat. The creature didn't move, just stared at him with those haunting, sunken eyes. Daniel reached for the ignition. A light flashed across the windshield. He ducked instinctively, pulse spiking. Through the rearview mirror, he saw one of the men standing near the warehouse, scanning the area with his flashlight. If they saw the truck, a low hum filled the air. The sound of a phone vibrating. The man answered. Yeah? No. Nothing yet. But if he took it, he won't get far. Daniel didn't wait to hear the rest. He turned the key. The engine roared to life. The flashlight whipped around, locking onto him. Shouts erupted. Hey! Stop! Daniel slammed his foot on the gas. The truck lurched forward, tires spitting gravel as it shot toward the road. In the rearview mirror, he saw the men sprinting toward their car. Headlights flared to life. They were coming after him. The truck fishtailed as Daniel gripped the wheel, the headlights cutting through the darkened road ahead. Gravel kicked up behind him, the tires screeching as he pushed the accelerator harder. In the rearview mirror, twin beams of light bore down on him, growing closer by the second. The men were in pursuit. His mind raced. Who were they? What did they want with the dog? And why had they mentioned a tracker? He risked a glance at the frail animal lying in the passenger seat. It was barely conscious, its breath shallow. If it had been chipped or tagged with something, Daniel had no way of knowing. A sharp turn was coming up, one he knew well. He had driven these roads for years, delivering supplies to the more remote farms and outposts. The road split just beyond the bend. One path led back toward town, the other twisted into a dense, forested area where streetlights were non-existent. The safer choice was town. But safety wasn't an option. He killed the headlights and veered right. The truck lurched onto the rough dirt path, the tires bouncing over uneven terrain. Branches scraped against the side as the darkness swallowed him whole. Behind him, the men's car skidded at the fork. For a moment, he thought they'd lost him. Then their lights turned. They were following. Daniel clenched his jaw. The path ahead was narrow, winding. If he could just gain a little more distance. A sharp jolt rocked the truck. A pothole. He barely managed to steady the wheel before the vehicle swayed violently. The dog whimpered. Hold on, buddy. Just a little longer, Then, up ahead, salvation. An old wooden bridge stretched over a shallow creek, its planks warped from years of neglect. Beyond it, the road curved sharply and disappeared into the trees. Daniel had an idea. Risky, but it was all he had. He pressed the gas, surging forward. Just as he reached the bridge, he yanked the emergency brake and turned the wheel hard. The truck spun sideways, skidding across the plank. The instant it stopped, he threw it into reverse and backed off the bridge, killing the engine. Seconds later, the other car appeared at the tree-line, its headlights illuminating the bridge. Daniel ducked low, holding his breath. The dog, as if sensing the urgency, remained motionless. The men's car slowed. For an agonizing moment, Daniel thought they would stop, step out, search the area. Then, the car accelerated, tires thudding over the bridge before vanishing around the bend. He exhaled, heart hammering. He had bought them time. But not much. He restarted the truck, keeping the headlights off as he turned onto an even smaller path, one only he and a handful of locals knew existed. It led deep into the forest, toward an old cabin, a place where no one would think to look. As he drove, his fingers tightened around the edge of his jacket, feeling the solid shape of the metal box beneath. He still had no idea what was inside. But whatever it was, someone was willing to kill for it. The cabin loomed ahead, shrouded in darkness and silence. Daniel pulled the truck to a stop beneath the thick canopy of trees, killing the engine. The night pressed in around him, but he could still hear the distant hum of an engine in the distance. They weren't far behind. He turned to the dog. It was weak, its breathing labored, but those tired eyes still held a flicker of something, trust. "We'll figure this out," he murmured, lifting the frail creature into his arms. Moving quickly, he pushed open the cabin door and stepped inside. Dust hung in the air, the scent of old wood and damp earth thick in the small space. The place had been abandoned for years, but Daniel had kept it stocked, just in case. He set the dog down gently on an old blanket near the hearth and grabbed a lantern. Its glow cast long shadows across the walls as he finally pulled the metal box from his jacket. His fingers hesitated over the latch. What the hell was so important about this? Taking a steadying breath, he flipped it open. Inside, nestled within a foam casing, was a small, cylindrical device. Sleek, black. No markings, no buttons. But embedded along its surface were tiny, blinking lights. A tracker. His stomach tightened. They weren't after the dog. They were after this. The realization sent a chill through him. Someone had hidden this device in the cage, knowing it would go unnoticed, until now. And now that Daniel had it, he had become a target. A sharp noise outside snapped his attention back. Footstep. They had found him. Moving fast, he shoved the box under the floorboards and grabbed the dog. It whimpered but didn't resist as he cradled it against his chest. The front door creaked as it slowly pushed open. Daniel backed into the shadows, heart pounding. A silhouette stood in the doorway, a flashlight cutting through the dark. Then, a voice. "You have no idea what you just got yourself into." Daniel's grip tightened around the dog. His mind raced. He had a choice: run, fight, or find out the truth. And something told him the truth was far worse than he imagined.